Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new, please subscribe. If you're returning, thank you so much. Today we're going to be talking about the poison archetype build. So before we get into it, I want to say thank you to MetaCrit Plays who has requested this build. And if anybody else has any suggestions to which archetype you'd like me to make a guide about, please write down in the comments and I'll try to get into it soon. Alright, so now let's talk about the poison. So poison is a debuff that you give to your enemy, and at the start of their turn it hurts them for the amount of poison that they have. So if they have a poison of 5, it's going to decrease their HP by 5, and it decreases after it. So it starts that you hurt them with the poison of 5, then next turn it's going to be 4, 3, 2, 1, and then it's going to disappear. And it goes through block. This is very important because when you're fighting, for example, the Spear Guardian, which you can see in the video, normally you'd have to get over his huge block, but if you have poison you can completely ignore that and you can just apply poison and it hurts him immediately. Ideally what you want to do with the poison build is that you want to increase it every turn, because what it normally does is that it decreases. So you apply poison of 5, but next one is only going to be 4, and what you would like is to increase it instead. There are two main ways to do that. You either have Noxious Fumes, and what Noxious Fumes does is it applies 2 poison to everybody at the start of the turn, or Envenom, which applies poison every time you deal unblocked damage. So Envenom is good if you want to go for a Shift Poison combination deck. Okay, so now that we kind of talked about what poison is, let's talk about which cards to pick. So first of all, obviously I want to go for all poison cards. So let me kind of categorize that into multiple options. So first you have sources of poison. You have Deadly Poison, Poison Staff, and Bouncing Flask. So Deadly Poison costs 1 energy and deals 5 poison. Now first of all, you have to remember that when it says 5 poison, it doesn't mean 5 damage. It's going to be 5 damage on the first turn, then next turn is going to be 4 damage, 3 damage, 2 damage, 1 damage. So altogether it's essentially 15 damage. Now of course this is not immediately, but essentially 1 deadly poison should give you 15 damage if you're going to fight at least 4 or 5 turns after applying it. Poison Stab deals damage and then gives 3 poison. And Bouncing Flask costs 2 energy and gives 3 times 3 poison. Now you might be thinking, why would I ever take a Bouncing Flask? I mean, Deadly Poison gives me 5 poison, this gives me times 3, so it's not that much better. But again, you have to remember that it's not a 9 and 5, but it's like 9 plus 8 plus 7 plus 6 and then 5 plus 4. So the Bouncing Flask actually does a lot more poison damage. And you have different relics that add additional poison if you have a poison attack. So with Bouncing Flask you can get additional 3 or 4 poison. Okay, now we have some powers that are pretty important with poison. I already mentioned them. It's Noxious Fumes and Venom. Noxious Fumes is absolutely fantastic and you would always want to take it. And Venom is a bit questionable. If you have no better power you can take it, but it really depends, because I'm going to talk about this later in the strategy, but preferably you don't want to have many attacks, so you don't have many reasons to evoke the Envenom. The only time I would always take Envenom is maybe you wanted to do a shift build, but now you kind of got some good poison cards, so you're going to do this like combination. Then Envenom can be good because you have a couple of shifts in your hand anyway, so shifts are 0 cost attack cards, and you can use them and then like increase the poison in Venom. A couple of interesting utilization cards like Catalyst. Catalyst, absolutely amazing, always take it. The way Catalyst works is that it doubles your poison, so you need to have something that first creates the poison, something like Deadly Poison or Bouncing Flask, something that actually gives the poison to the enemy, and you can use Catalyst to double it, which is absolutely amazing. Corpse Explosion. Corpse Explosion has 2 energy, deals 6 poison, and then when you kill an enemy, it hurts all other enemies with the maximum HP of this enemy. So for example, if you have some minion against the Bronze Automaton and they have 51 HP, so if you use poison on them and you kill them with the poison, then you deal 51 damage to the Bronze Automaton. And there's been a bit of a debate whether it's useful. I personally think it's fantastic, but if you have Specimen, which is a relic that lets you transfer poison from when you kill an enemy. I don't think Corpse Explosion is that essential. The problem here is it's fairly expensive, 2 energy for 6 poison, and if you only have 1 enemy it becomes kind of useless. But I would probably still take it, it's a good card. Or if you have the Specimen, then you might don't need to, because the Specimen is like incredibly powerful. And if you can transfer the poison, it probably can win anyways. Then there are cards that take advantage of poison. Here I would like to mention Bane. Bane is a card that deals 7 damage and costs 1 energy. And if the enemy is poisoned, deals extra 7 damage. So it's essentially 14 damage for 1 energy, which is pretty great. Oh, and if it's upgraded, it does 10 damage and 10 damage. So it's actually 20 damage for 1 energy. It's also amazing. Sadistic Nature is also an interesting card. It's actually a colorless card, but what it does, it deals 3 damage to enemy every time you apply a debuff to him, which is fantastic with the poison build because you're going to be applying a lot of debuffs with your poison. So Sadistic Nature is going to be evoked many times and you can do some extra damage. Bullet Time is not necessarily a poison build card. What it does, it stops you from drawing any more cards and it makes all your cards in your hand free. This can be quite useful because especially if you have a lot of the bouncing class, they're quite expensive, or Corpse Explosion and stuff, so making it free allows you to play a lot more cards. If you don't have a better card, I would take this. Okay, so now let's move on, let's talk about the strategies. So there are 2 main strategies I would say with the poison. The first one, and this is actually the one that I consider easier and probably more successful, it's the defense poison combination. Essentially, you want to have some source of poison, preferably Noxious Fumes, because Noxious Fumes gives you an additional poison every turn of 2 if it's upgraded of 3. And then you want to just focus on your defense. Let's assume you can play the Noxious Fumes on the first turn, you poison all your enemy with poison of 3, then you're going to keep defending for about 3 to 4 turns until the poison on your enemies gets to about 10, and then you would like to start using your catalyst. Because if you can double your catalyst, it's going to be to 20, better if you can triple it, which is upgraded catalyst to 30. And then with 30 damage, the enemy is going to die very, very quickly. Now, in addition to this, you can have a few poison cards like Deadly Poison or Bouncing Flask or Poison Step or something, but essentially you really want to focus on the defense because the Silent doesn't heal, and in difference to the Defect, it doesn't have this Frost or this great defense, so you really need to focus on defensive cards. The best way to do this is to get Footwork. Footwork is a power that increases your dexterity by 2, 3 if it is upgraded. And this helps you immensely because now regular defensive cards are going to do a defense of 8 and better defensive cards are going to be really increased. So this, I think, is the best strategy, is that you're going to take a couple of Footworks, you're going to really dive in onto the defensive side, and then you're going to have some Noxious Fumes and couple Deadly Poisons, and most importantly the Catalyst. That's what deals you damage, so you don't actually need to have any actual attacking cards, because defenses are skills, poison are skills, unless you have the poison step, everything is sort of a skill. So if you do really want to take some attack, fantastic attack is Fletchitis, because you only have these skills in your hand. So Fletchitis deals 6 damage multiplied by the number of skills that you have in your hand. You can use that to do big damage, but essentially you don't really need attacking cards. You're doing the damage with the poison and you're focusing on your defense. Here a good card is also Blur. What Blur does, gives you block, and block is not going to be removed by the end of the turn. So it's like a barricade but just for 1 turn. So this is again really good with the defense, because if the enemy is not attacking you, you still have a lot of defensive cards in your hand, so this way you can use them up. Generally with Silent you want to create a lot more defensive build, so this is why this works very well. There's another strategy which is a bit more poison oriented, and that's using a Nightmare or Burst with Catalyst. Let's first talk about Nightmare. Nightmare costs 3 energy and it allows you to create 3 copies of a single card, and it puts it on top of your draw pile, so next turn you can draw them. So you want to use Nightmare on this turn, and then next turn you're gonna use all 3 catalysts. Imagine upgraded catalyst. Now you started with a poison of 15, you can triple it once, it goes to 45, triple it again, it goes to 135. Now this is already huge poison, you can kill any enemy in like 2 turns with this. But you have the third catalyst, which you can triple to like 300 damage of bye-bye enemy. So if you're gonna use the Nightmare, you can even use the triple catalyst if they have like just a poison of 5, because then you get it to 15, 45, and then again to the 135, so the enemy is dead in 2 turns. You don't need to care. So this is fantastic. Another good thing is burst. What burst does, it plays your next skill twice, so you can use that on the catalyst. And the advantage of burst is that you're not losing that 1 turn, because if you only have 3 energy, you've used the Nightmare, you lost that 1 turn, and you need to take a lot of damage on that 1 turn before the next turn you can use the catalyst, essentially kill the enemy. So burst is better because burst only costs 1 energy, catalyst costs 1 energy, and then you can still use some defense with your 3rd energy if you only have 3 energy. There's not that 1 turn that you lose. You would like to try to remove as many strikes as you can. You can keep your defenses for the defense poison build, but you want to remove your strikes because you don't need them. Also, a good strategy is to try to go for shock. There's a bigger chance that you might get some good poison cards. Oh, and one more thing I want to say, when you're taking the Noxious Fumes, don't be afraid to take multiple of these cards. For example, 3 Noxious Fumes are like a winning strategy essentially, because imagine that, especially if you have them upgraded, you're doing 9 poison every turn. So at first it's like 9 poison, okay, so it does 9 damage, but next turn you increase it by 9 poison, so now they have like 18 poison. And then the 3rd turn they have 27 poison. Like we said, with 27 poison, like if you have 1 catalyst, you basically won. But even if you don't, most of the smaller enemies are gonna die immediately. So Noxious Fumes is fantastic, you want to take that a lot. Okay, so now let's kind of talk about the weaknesses. So first, I'd like to talk about the Gremlin Knob, which is a weakness. It might sound weird, like Gremlin Knob, I mean, I'm only gonna fight him in Act 1, or like what's the problem here? The problem here is the fact that the Gremlin Knob enrages himself, so when you use skills, it increases his strength. And the problem here is that everything you have in your hand is a skill. You don't have except the poison stat. Every time you're gonna play something, because poison is your source of attack, so if you play poison, you're gonna enrage him. Now, in the Act 1, it's actually not that big of a deal, because you still have a lot of strikes that you weren't able to remove. But, for example, if you get the event of Colosseum, always run away with the Silent, because you're gonna have a really rough time killing the true Gremlin Knobs. Okay, more weaknesses. It can take a while to build up, because the way the poison works, it starts with a slow poison, then you keep increasing it if you can get the catalyst and stuff, or even if you just like keep going again with deadly poisons and stuff. The problem is that most of our enemies build up as well. For example, if you're fighting the Giant Head, you have 3 turns to essentially build up your poison to something strong, so then when he does the higher attacks, it's not gonna hurt you too much, which is a lot. But if you don't have like that great card, if you don't have the catalyst, if you only have like deadly poison, bouncing frogs, it can still be too slow, so the enemy can kill you with that. So this is why I said that it's easier to go with the defense build, because if you have a very strong defense, you don't have like 3 turns to build up with the Giant Head, but essentially maybe 5 or 6, because you can just defend for the amount of damage they do, and that should be enough for your poison. Another weakness is the awaken time and time eater. The awaken time, when he dies, he will revive himself, and after he revives himself, he removes all his debuffs. So this is very tricky with the catalyst, especially if you only have 1 in your deck, so you need to think it through, because if you use it too soon, if you use it on the first time before the awakened revives, it's gonna be great that you kill him, but then when he revives, he does a lot more damage. Instead of something around 20, he does stuff around 40. So if you cannot defend for that, you will not be able to poison him quickly enough. So you kind of have to keep in mind when you want to use the catalyst. Same with the Time Eater, he doesn't revive, but once you get HP to something less than 220 or something around that number, he heals himself, and when he heals himself, he removes all his debuffs again. So that means you have to kind of poison him all over again from the beginning, but he already does fairly high attacks. Okay, so let's now move on to relics. The first relics I want to talk about is Snaggle Skull, and it gives you 1 additional poison every time you poison enemy. There is great synergy with the Bouncing Flask, like I mentioned before. Another thing is Specimen. Specimen is a huge relic. Absolutely take it, always. Specimen, what it does is that it transfers the poison from a dead enemy to another enemy. Now this is huge again, because when you kill an enemy, you maybe poison them for 30, they only have 5 HP left, so it's gonna kill them and you're gonna lose all this poison that you just so carefully build up with catalyst or deadly poison and stuff. But with the specimen, it's gonna take the 30 poison and move it to somebody else, so you can over poison. He will die, the poison will be transferred to the other guy, and then it will be applied to the other guy afterwards, so next turn. So not immediately that turn, but the next one. Corpse explosion is better in the sense that if you kill the enemy, it does the big damage on the same turn to the other guys. Specimen is the next turn, so just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, other good relics are Bottled Tornado and Bottled Lightning. Bottled Tornado lets you get a power at the start of the combat. Here I'd go with Noxious Fumes. If you don't have Noxious Fumes, go with Footwork, if you're going for the defense-oriented build. But even if you don't, if you have Footwork, just put it at the start, unless you have Noxious Fumes. Bottled Lightning lets you get a skill at the start of your turn. Here, if you're going for the more poison-oriented build, take Nightmare, because the first turn the enemy don't attack that much, so you could get the triple catalyst. You probably won't be able to use it just yet, because you didn't do enough poisoning, but at least it will be kind of ready in your hand, and then you can just like over time apply it. Alternatively, Bullet Time, so that on the first turn everything in your hand will be free, especially if you have the original silent relic that lets you draw 2 additional cards on the first turn. So if you have Bullet Time at this point, can be great. However, I have found in like my experience of playing this turn, that's actually a pretty good idea, unless you're going for a discard build, to remove your starting relic and take any other rare relic. For example, if you can get an Energy relic, amazing. Like once I got Sazu, made the build very easy. Another time I got something like Snacko Skull, I think, again, really helped with the run. Third time I got Snacko Eyes, which you can see in one of these videos. Snacko Eyes is an absolutely fantastic relic. It's essentially a game-winning relic. I have sort of taken a poison build with the Snacko Eye, but usually you wanna take expensive cards. If you're interested in that, I can make a build on that some other time. Thread and Needle is another great relic because it gives you an extra defense. This can be good in both versions. If you're gonna go for a defense poison, it's great because you get extra defense. If you wanna go for a more poison-oriented build, it can give you some protection. A Letter Opener. Letter Opener is fantastic. I'd buy it in the shops. I would probably say that the order here is the Specimen is the best, then Snacko Skull, then Letter Opener, and then the other 3 I've mentioned. Because Letter Opener, what it does, every time you play 3 skills, it deals a 5 damage to the enemy. Amazing, especially with the defense poison build, because if sometimes you don't have a poison in your hand, you're just gonna keep going with the defense, you can still do some extra damage, which is amazing. Okay, so what's my review on the poison build? So first thing I want to say is that it's very flexible in the sense that it works with a lot of other decks. You can have a mostly focused defense build and just take few Noxious Fumes to sort of add some poison. You can have a mostly poison oriented build with the Nightmare and Burst like we talked about. You can have a Shift poison deck where you have a Venom, maybe a couple of sources of poison like Deadly Poison or Poison Step, but you're mostly focusing on your Shift build. So poison is a really good debuff that you can kind of combine with a lot of other strategies, which is really nice. The defensive build can be quite powerful, but you have to get it right. So what does that mean? You have to really defend. This is especially hard to remember if you have been playing the Ironclad for a while like I have, that you just want to attack, you just want to poison. That's not the way it goes. For example, if you can get 2 Noxious Fumes, you can essentially just sit back and relax. All you're doing is defending, and the Noxious Fumes will do the work for you. And if you can add a few deadly poison and stuff, it's going to be amazing. So that's why you really have to kind of focus on defending. And if you have things like Burst, yeah, you want to use it on the Catalyst if you can, but if you don't have the Catalyst in your hand, but use it on a defense, use it on a blur. You know, use Burst on a blur. Just really focus on defending, and the poison will take care of the enemy, especially if you have Noxious Fumes. This can be a really fun build. I actually quite like it, just have to get it right. I like it. It's a fairly basic build for the Silent. Again, this is kind of like the build that you get the first time you win on Silent. It's kind of like equivalent of the Barricade and Demon Form builds and the Ironclad, more so the Barricade and the Demon Form. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, write down in the comments, and if you have your own suggestion for Archetype build, write it down in the comments as well. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.